Imagine a world where one man's ideas were so far ahead of their time that even the richest industrialists grew nervous whenever he spoke. Nikola Tesla wasn't just an inventor, he was the kind of mind that appears maybe once in 1,000 years. A man who visualized entire machines in his head, who spoke about energy as if it were alive, who believed the Earth itself could be used to power every home on the planet. But in our timeline, Tesla's brilliance ran into the one thing he never mastered: money. Investors backed away, projects stalled, inventions were abandoned, and the world moved forward without the breakthroughs he believed were inevitable. But what if it hadn't happened that way? What if Nikola Tesla had received unlimited funding from the moment he arrived in America? What if his wildest ideas had been given the resources to grow, instead of the budget to disappear? Before we dive into that alternate world, remember that if you love deep stories about hidden history and the inventors who changed everything, make sure you subscribe. It helps the channel reach people who are just as curious as you, and it allows us to keep exploring the big what-ifs the history books never dared to ask. Now imagine this. It's 1884. Tesla steps off the ship in New York City with 4 cents in his pocket, but this time he isn't alone. In this version of history, he arrives with a wealthy European patron who believes in him completely. Someone who sees Tesla not as a gamble but as the future. Instead of taking small jobs and spending months climbing out of poverty, Tesla immediately establishes a fully funded laboratory in Manhattan, larger and more advanced than anything Edison ever owned. The moment he sets foot in that lab, the timeline begins to break away from our own. The war of currents never becomes a war, because Tesla's alternating current system is demonstrated on a scale so large, so flawlessly funded, that resistance collapses within months. And without the constant battle for financial survival, Tesla moves on quickly, shifting to inventions the world wouldn't see for another 60 years. By the early 1890s, he demonstrates wireless lighting not in tiny rooms but across entire city blocks. Newspapers report it as the first true moment where technology feels like magic. Investors pour money into him, not because they believe, but because the public forces them to. He becomes the face of the future, the voice America trusts when it wants to understand where the world is heading. With unlimited funding, Tesla immediately returns to his favorite idea: transmitting power without wires. In our timeline, Wardenclyffe Tower fell apart because bankers feared it would make electricity unprofitable. But in this new version of history, Tesla doesn't depend on those bankers. Construction begins, not on one tower, but on a chain of them reaching across the United States like a new kind of highway. Each tower amplifies the next, creating a web of energy flowing through the ground and the sky. At night, people would stand on their porches and watch the air shimmer faintly with power. Not dangerous, but alive. Lamps turn on without cords. Early electric cars, decades before Henry Ford, drive through cities that no longer fear the price of fuel. Power companies never form monopolies, because energy becomes something closer to air, everywhere, and unknown. And here is where the biggest shift occurs. Tesla believed that once electricity was unlimited and global, communication would follow. With unlimited funding and no need to convince anyone, he builds a global wireless communication system 20 years before radio becomes mainstream. The first messages sent across the Atlantic aren't Morse code, they are full-voice transmissions. By 1910, handheld communication devices exist, crude but functional. Young Americans walk through cities holding small receivers, listening to concerts or news broadcasts that feel almost supernatural for the time. The world becomes connected, not in 1950, not in 1930, but before World War I has even begun. This early connection changes everything politically. Rumors travel slower than truth. Leaders speak directly to citizens continents away. Empires find it harder to hide, and revolutions spread not through whispers but through broadcasts. America becomes the technological beacon of the world 40 years earlier than in our timeline, driven by a single inventor who finally has the support he always needed. But the most frightening and thrilling consequence of unlimited funding comes from Tesla's ideas about machines that can think. Long before the concept of artificial intelligence existed, he talked about creating automated systems that could make decisions, learn, and operate without direct human control. With full support behind him, these ideas turn into prototypes. Factories begin to run machines that analyze problems instead of simply repeating motions. The foundations of modern computing appear decades early, and by the 1920s, industries transform at a pace the world never expected. In this alternate history, Tesla doesn't fade into loneliness. He becomes the face of a new kind of civilization, one where energy is free, communication is instant, and machines evolve alongside humans. But the real question is what this world looks like when his inventions spark consequences even he could not predict. By the 1920s, America in Tesla's world looks nothing like the one in our history books. Skyscrapers glow, not just from the inside, but from the outside, wrapped in thin wireless lighting that shifts colors like living metal. Streets are quieter because the majority of vehicles run on electric power drawn directly from the ground. No charging stations, no fuel, no engines roaring through the night. Young Americans grow up believing unlimited energy is normal, the same way we accept air or sunlight. But this level of power begins to reshape society in deeper, more unexpected ways. Factories run non-stop without worrying about cost, and production increases so dramatically that the price of consumer goods drops sharply. Ordinary families can afford technologies that would have been luxuries for the wealthy. Homes in rural America receive power decades earlier, and wireless receivers allow farmers to listen to global news while working in fields that are lit at night by Tesla's atmospheric lamps. Education spreads faster because students everywhere can access early broadcast lessons, and universities begin experimenting with remote learning long before television exists in our timeline. But unlimited progress carries a weight. As the world adopts Tesla's inventions, nations rush to catch up. Europe builds its own network of transmission towers. Russia constructs vast communication grids, and early computer-like automation begins appearing around the globe. And while technology connects people more than ever, it also intensifies competition between countries. Powerful nations realize that whoever controls the communication towers controls truth itself. The world races toward a new kind of global rivalry, not fought with armies at first, but with frequencies and towers and control of the invisible currents moving through the air. In this alternate reality, the First World War still happens, but it unfolds with shocking differences. Communication devices in the hands of ordinary soldiers make it harder for governments to hide realities of the battlefield. Public pressure becomes immediate. Propaganda is easier to expose. Battles rely on early automated sensors inspired by Tesla's theories, and commanders understand troop movement in real time. The war ends faster, not because it is less violent, but because information moves too quickly for leaders to bend it. Tesla's influence, though never intended for war, begins to shape geopolitics in ways he may have feared. After the war, his attention shifts to something even more ambitious: transportation that no longer depends on wheels or rails. Tesla believed the Earth had natural conductive pathways that could allow high-speed movement through controlled magnetic fields. With unlimited funding, he finally tests the concept. By the early 1930s, engineers developed the first prototypes of magnetically lifted shuttles moving between cities on invisible tracks of energy. They hover effortlessly, gliding at speeds no train could reach. These early vehicles inspire a nationwide project to redesign travel across America. Highways still exist, but they are used far less. Major cities become interconnected by silent corridors of magnetic transportation that make travel feel like stepping into the future. Meanwhile, the idea of artificial intelligence becomes more than just a theory. Tesla's self-regulating machines evolve into mechanical assistants used in factories, hospitals, libraries, and eventually homes. They are not robots in the modern sense, but they respond, calculate, and learn. This early wave of automation reshapes the workforce far earlier than in our world. Many routine jobs disappear, replaced by roles requiring creativity, supervision, and problem-solving. Schools adapt, teaching advanced subjects to prepare children for a future built on thinking machines. The economic shock is enormous, but the country adapts because it has grown up expecting rapid change. By the mid-20th century, America becomes something that looks strangely familiar and yet completely foreign. Cities buzz with wireless power, magnets guide transportation, early computers manage infrastructure, and communication moves instantly around the globe. The world feels smaller, brighter, faster. But the biggest transformation comes from something Tesla dreamt of his entire life: harnessing energy from the Earth and the sky to create true planetary power. International teams come together to build massive atmospheric collectors floating high above the oceans, gathering energy from storms and transmitting it across continents. Nations argue, collaborate, disagree, and merge interests as the world slowly transitions toward a shared energy network. The global economy becomes intertwined. Countries can no longer isolate themselves because the world's energy circulates like a heartbeat through all of humanity. For the average American living in this alternate 1950s, life feels astonishingly modern. Cars hover. Communication is seamless. Homes contain learning machines. Skies glow softly with wireless power at night. And every citizen grows up hearing the same phrase, almost like a national mantra: Tesla built the future so we could live in it. But here's the twist that brings everything full circle. In our timeline, Nikola Tesla died poor, overlooked, and underestimated. In this alternate world, he becomes something different: not a celebrity, not a billionaire, something far more lasting. A figure woven into the fabric of the country's identity, a quiet symbol of what can happen when genius is supported instead of doubted. His story becomes a reminder that the biggest turning points in history often come down to a single moment of investment, a single act of belief, a single person seeing potential instead of risk. If you want more videos exploring the hidden paths history could have taken and the inventors who shaped the world we live in, make sure you subscribe. Your support helps bring these stories to life and keeps us diving deeper into the timelines that almost happened.